Almost 2/3 of decisions aren't backed by data, and 8 out of 9 data requests miss same-day delivery. Hi, I'm Milo, your agentic Gen BI analyst. My mission is to help you back every decision and action with data. Simply connect any data source, whether it's a single database, your entire data warehouse, the tools you use every day, or good old spreadsheets. I know you got plenty of them. Plug in your knowledge base so I can understand your business context. I'll run any analysis or build comprehensive dashboards that blend multiple data sources, all from a single prompt. Now, here's where things get really useful. I don't just create dynamic, interactive charts. I explain what's happening, why it matters, and then trigger the right actions based on those insights. Oh, and if you prefer, you can chat with me in Slack, Teams, or WhatsApp. Let's start today. Every decision backed by data.
Sorry.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I see we're still waiting for some guys, but we can start. So welcome to our webinar series about generative BI. We have a couple of topics today. It's a very basic start of our series. Don't let your decisions die in dashboards. So we will dive into a non-technical review of what generative BI is, and then do a quick demo how this looks in practice. I'm Andy. I am one of the co-founders of Autonomous Minds. I have Philip here, our CEO and co-founder as well. Philip is in Paris, so I'll run the majority of the show, but we will kick it off immediately. Good. So what are we talking about? What's the big problem that generative BI tries to solve? We call this the see-wait-act gap. And this is mainly that existing, let's say, the clunky incumbents in the BI space cause. So what does this mean in practice? Let's look at the process, how you usually attack data requests and actions in an organization with traditional BI tools. So let's say the business requests some data. Can be an analysis, it can be a dashboard, whatsoever, right? Day one. Then depending on how busy these data analysts are, they will walk away. You raise a ticket, they will walk away. 2, 3, 4, 5 days pass, and they will come up with a draft. Then happens a meeting. You'll review the draft. You'll ask some questions about the whole thing. Ask the why. Why does the data look as it looks? Make adjustments. And then the data analyst refines. And by that time, usually up to a week, 7, 8 days can easily pass until you reach that stage. And then you discuss your findings, right? You finally have something that everyone is happy with. You do another meeting and you assign and execute the operational actions. And that whole process can easily take, as we said, a week to 10 days. And if that sounds familiar, then you're not alone, because these numbers are not out of thin air. They are basically researched by Gartner. This is the average. So every organization claims to be data-driven, but in reality, it's mainly fiction. And the reason is that traditional BI tools are very technical, very clunky. And that means that you usually have less than 20% adoption in an organization. So everyone has a license, but less than a quarter, usually less than 25% whatsoever, actually use these tools, because you usually require some technical skills. It's slow. Gartner found out that only 1 in 9 data requests in any organization are usually delivered within the same day, right? So it's quite slow. And even if you have tools and a sophisticated team that can provide you with your data, very often these dashboards are just static, right? So you look at a nice chart or several nice charts, and you see that, for example, your Q4 pipeline is trending down, but it actually doesn't tell you why that happened, right? So you always then need to have the human data analyst to help you understand this. And that causes this massive, massive delay. And that's why insights without action equals expensive delay, right? This is the old world. You spend a lot on your tools, you spend a lot on human resources, you flood your human data analysts with daily requests that overwhelm them completely. And most of your insights come without actions days after you requested them. And that causes a lot of friction and a lot of costs. And that's where generative BI comes into play. Generative BI, what is this? Is basically a bit of a hype topic at the moment. We'll see in the next slide that this is something that is up and coming and quite hot and will become even hotter. Generative BI is nothing else than the use of large language models, so generative AI, to deliver data insights, to automate tasks based on these insights from simple language, right? So you can basically prompt an AI to chat to your data, to understand your data, and have the AI automatically trigger actions. So this is usually 3 stages. So number 1 is you democratize data access. As we said, traditional BI tools usually are not adopted very well in the organization because they're clunky, they're technical, and people really don't like to use Power BI. I've never heard anyone, and I used to work for Microsoft, saying, I love Power BI, right? At least a non-technical user would never say that. So with generative BI, given the fact that you interact through natural language, this removes this burden. Then, and here comes the most, or the first really, really important aspect, it tells you the why behind your data, right? As we said in the beginning, Power BI, Tableau, etc. They show you nice charts, but obviously, okay, I see that my Q4 trend line is trending down, but why? What's the reason, right? And this is what generative BI does. It gives you a causal analysis because it has context, and we will talk about that in a minute, and we will also show this in the demo. And finally, it takes action, because when you think about it, most actions and most decisions that are taken in an organization are usually operational decisions and actions, like micro decisions. You want to update the CRM, you have to escalate something, you have to write an email, you have to set up a meeting, and so on and so forth, right? And these actions, in the case of generative BI, are triggered based on the why, right? And that's the main thing. So where's my mouse? So you go from what to why to done in minutes instead of days. So I mentioned before, I simply copied this slide out of a Gartner study. So we discussed this with Gartner yesterday, and they also see that this topic will be one of the hottest in AI coming up. Why? Because if you think about what I just said, when we quickly go back, so you give everyone access to data in a simple way. You make everyone understand their data and the why behind the data, and then have an AI automatically trigger the right action based and backed by data. This is huge for any organization. This is basically similar to an AI COO almost. So we also see that in a couple of years, probably the topic of business intelligence analytics will amalgamate with operations, and it will not be a discipline by its own. So when we go back to the Gartner topic, just a few numbers, I will not read the slide, but by 2028, so in 3 years, 60% of all the dashboards that exist will be produced by generative AI. 15% of all the decisions taken, the operational decisions taken daily, will be done and automatically done by AI. So you can imagine, you can think about it for a couple of seconds, how huge that topic will become in a couple of years. Monster slide, I will not read it, promised. But of course, we talk about the world of generative BI. We talk about the world of traditional BI. And there's also something in between, which is called text to SQL. These are usually this GPT wrappers, if you have heard the term before. So the traditional BI, this is your clunky static incumbents, your Microsoft Power BI, your Tableau from Salesforce, etc., that force you to raise a ticket with your BI team, right? The static stuff that really annoys you because you cannot really interact with it yourself without the help of a technical user, a data analyst, a data scientist, or whatsoever. And these tools usually don't have context. They require very structured data. So you need usually have data engineers or BI developers that prepare the data before Power BI, for example, or Tableau can actually consume it in a proper way. Then you have the middle ground. This is text to SQL. So these are usually all the tools that simply connect. That's why we call them wrappers, that simply connect to OpenAI's API, to Anthropic's Claude API, to Google's Gemini's API. So what happens here very often is you have a chatbot, you have very structured data, you throw that at one of the big LLMs, right? And they basically query your data on your behalf based on your instructions. Again, comes with little to no context. There is a bit of context because, of course, if you give something to an LLM, you need to provide it at least with a bit of information on that concrete data set, but it does not understand what else is going on in your organization. And generative BI is the world we're exploring today. These are the tools that understand what is going on in your organization, ideally in real time. They explain you again the why things move in your organization, and then trigger the right actions without having to ask a data analyst. And these tools usually have, or not usually, always have very comprehensive context, right? Even if you ask it a simple question about a pipeline, for example, Salesforce data, HubSpot data, they will also know what else is going on. So if you ask a question about a specific customer, even if you only ask about the opportunities for the specific customer, these AI tools will also look into, for example, data about your customer support, recent emails, finance data, and so on and so forth, to build a comprehensive context, to really understand what's going on. And that's a huge, huge difference. We will see it later in the demo, that it will become more clear. So we talked about the old process, days, right? Let's explore the new process. We talk about minutes here. So the big benefit of any generative BI tool is that it basically cuts down the time from business requests stated to operational action executed from days to minutes. And how it works is very simple. You ask the AI in plain English a specific question, for example. The AI will go back and forth with you, right? Because humans are usually quite bad in expressing themselves. AI isn't magic, but it will challenge you if it doesn't understand what you want, which is very, very powerful. You have to treat AI as a coworker, not as a tool, right? So think about it. You have a new data analyst and you tell it, show me the pipeline, right? The human cannot smell what you want, right? What does this mean? Do you want to know the pipeline value? Do you want to know the number of opportunities? Whatever. What do you want, right? And AI will do the same thing, but it will do it way quicker, and you will teach it once, and then it will remember forever. And this is the huge differentiator. So it will challenge you. So it takes a couple of minutes usually. Then it goes away. It generates exactly what you want because you went back and forth with it. a report, a dashboard, whatever, and then either suggest actions and you just confirm them and it will go away and execute it, or you instruct it to do certain actions, or if you trust it enough, it can also do pre-learned actions autonomously. So a simple example would be, for example, when we talk about revenue operations, overdue management, right? So you have a pipeline, you have overdue opportunities. What the AI could do without the sales manager even, or the RevOps manager even looking at the pipeline would be, okay, if an opportunity is overdue and hasn't been touched in more than 2 weeks, for example, it will take that opportunity, send a Slack message to the seller and instruct him, hey, this one is overdue. You haven't closed it, you haven't touched it, you have 48 hours to basically update it, or I will close it as lost and inform your manager that you lost this opportunity because you haven't touched it in weeks, right? So a very, very simple case, right? Usually these cases are way more complex, but just to illustrate what we mean here. And that can also be fully autonomously, as we just said. A few simple examples just to illustrate what we're talking about here. So this is just 2 examples from our customers and how they already use Gen BI in their environments. So the important thing is always that we usually combine data from different sources. So let's take a simple example from revenue operations, churn risk analysis, right? So your existing, when we go back, your existing traditional BI tool will not tell you anything about churn risk, right? So you have to dig into the data, you have to drill into it, you have to explore it. You probably need to ask several people or have to look into several tools to understand why is there a churn risk and where is a churn risk. Generative BI can do that because it not only has the structured data, it also has unstructured data. And what that means in this example is it does not only look into your CRM or into your data warehouse, where you see, the user, let's say you basically use a digital product, you see that your user or your customer is using a digital product every day. What you do not see is that, for example, this customer has raised 15 support tickets over the last 6 weeks, that this customer has sent free complaints via email in the last 2 weeks, etc. Right? This is what we mean with unstructured data. This is where AI comes into play, and Gen BI is so powerful because it doesn't only look at your static structural performance data, it also looks into your support tools, in this case, in your Slack channels, into your emails, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, very good example of how generative BI makes a gigantic difference, because as we said before, it can also run autonomously, which means that if you trust it, it can do that in the background and ping you whenever it sees the signals that, oh, this customer A or B might have an increased churn risk. It sends you a Slack message and basically asks you, you should better pick up the phone and call this customer to ensure that everything is fine, because it could be too late in a couple of weeks. So this is a very, very simple example. I will not go through all these examples here. Now, before we go to the demo, one more small thing. I talked a lot about how awesome Gen BI is. So what are the no-goes? When should you not consider using Gen BI? At least not yet. The 3 main cases here is anything that is really mission critical and irreversible. So a good Gen BI tool will allow you to undo the last actions. But if something is really mission critical, then you should not fully trust it yet, of course, because AI can make mistakes, right? And human oversight in real time is important. Anything that requires near real time, so sub-second latency, for example. So these operations usually are not yet ideal for Gen BI as a use case. And of course, anything that requires a bespoke statistical design, right? When you have certain niches or you have regulatory approval chains, right? That will make it very hard to use Gen BI. But let's go to the demo, I would say, because it's good to look at the few slides, but it's always better to look at something real. So I will quickly move over to my tool here, and I'll show you in a second how this looks in action. 1 second, here we go. So this is our Milo. So I will not try to sell you the product promised, but of course I want to show you what GNBI looks like in action. So usually what you have is, as you know, from ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or anything else you use, you usually have a chat box, right? So either you interact with text or with voice usually, or multimodal via, can also input some images or stuff like that usually. In this case, as I said before, a strong Gen BI tool will also allow you to interact with your existing communication tools. So in this case, we have the web tool here, but you could, for example, our Milo also is integrated into Slack or Teams or WhatsApp, right? Because as I said before, you need to think about AI as a coworker rather than a tool. This is a really important mind shift when using actually any AI tool or any AI native tool, but very important for the analytics space. You need to treat it a bit like a human, like a coworker. So I will use just our web tool here because it's just easier for to show things. But as I said, you could also use Slack or anything else. So let me start with a simple use case. Let's produce a simple dashboard. So let's say in our demo environment here, we have Salesforce connected and a few other data sources. So it's a very simple environment. But let's try to produce let's do a sales pipeline dashboard. So produce a comprehensive sales pipeline dashboard. That in theory would already be enough if you have instructed the AI already. If I press enter now, it would probably bombard me with 15 questions because, as I said before, this is a fresh environment. There are no instructions yet, so this is clean. So you need to, whenever you start using such a tool, you need to treat it like a new employee. So you give it instructions. The difference is you only have to tell them once, and then they usually remember. So the more context you give it at the beginning, the better it is, because an AI tool usually learns from your interaction. So I'll give it a bit more context. So I want to see the top, let's say 20 opportunities by expected revenue, let's say. Revenue. What else do I want? Sales funnel by stage. Let's also look at the overview opportunities. And what else am I interested in? And maybe stalled opportunities. Let's say not touched in more than 14 days. And then let's add a filter. Let's say I want to filter by seller. So what happens now is it will look up, it will put together the whole context. So it will look at all the data it knows. Usually this tool is based on a bespoke data layer. So it means that it has enriched data and understands already what's going on in your organization. which is important because the output is way better. When you have like the tools I mentioned before, like these text to SQL tools, they usually cannot create dashboards or anything for you, at least not sophisticated, because they're very limited usually to one data set that is structured. So here we already have the first question. So as I said before, the AI cannot smell what I want. So it will ask me a few questions. So what does it ask here? Perfect, Salesforce opportunity, blah, 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 based in instructions, open opportunities only. Before I process, I need clarification. So it asks me how I define an overdue opportunity by close date or something else. Close date in the past. I can also add, if I want, remember for the future. I can give it an instruction, a simple instruction that it remembers everything I teach it in the future. Of course, I need to be careful because I also can teach it some nonsense and then it might get confused. But the good thing is that usually it will highlight if something is off, right? So if something doesn't make sense. So now, okay, it's already good enough. So now it created the outline already. So it asks me if I'm happy with the dashboard outline. So what does it do? Top 20 opportunities as a table. Sales funnel by stage as a funnel chart. Nice. Overdue opportunities as KPI. Not sure if I like this. Stalled opportunities also as a KPI. Okay, so in general, quite okay, but I would say for number 3, should be a table, because I want to also know which opportunities are overdue. And oh no, it is there, sorry. So it just added 2, it added a widget and it added the table. So it was my mistake, and it did the same here. So everything is there. I could easily now, the filter is there, nice. I could easily now simply add more stuff if I want, but I'll show you once the dashboard is there how that works. So I simply say go ahead, and what it will do now is it will pull all the data together, analyze everything, challenge itself multiple times to ensure that it doesn't hallucinate things, and produce the dashboard. That can take a while, so that usually takes a couple of minutes. This is a quite this is quite a small dashboard, so I assume this would probably take no more than 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see the thinking, right? So if you're interested, you can always follow its thinking, because it will exactly tell you what it does when it does it. And even if it runs into issues, it will highlight it and will say, okay, I'll try XYZ, I'll try the filter. Okay, the filter is created, wonderful, right? So you can always follow this. You always have an audit trail. So you can see in this example here that our product, for example, tells you exactly how it's broken down, the overall task into sub-steps, right? And you can also tell it at the end that you liked what it did. So that is important, because if you think about it, the more you interact, the more feedback you give the AI, like you would do with a human, the more it learns, the quicker it learns. And when you are in an organization of thousands of people or a few hundred people, each and every of your coworker will benefit from your instructions, right? So the more feedback you give it, the better at the end. So that multiplies quickly. It's almost exponential, right? So the more people use it, the more people give feedback, the bigger the knowledge. And it's already done. Look at this, interesting. Let's see, it's still checking things. So what it does now, the dashboard was already created. What it does now is it just reviews the whole thing one more time. So it looks at the data, it looks if all the widgets that we wanted it to produce are there, and then find any any issues, right? So here it identified an issue and tries to immediately resolve itself, right? So this is powerful, and this can only be done through context. In this case, one of the data sources is, for example, the sales handbook of the organization. So we have a fake sales handbook that we added. So Milo understands what we expect in the sales process. So if it messes up the order of the funnel, for example, it will notice it, it will double check it, and then it fixes it itself. So you don't need to even instruct it. It will do it based on its own context. So here we go. It produced the dashboard. Everything is interactive, of course. I see my overdue opportunities. I see 11 stalled opportunities. It's a very, very simple dashboard, but obviously I can also see this in my dashboard section. So what I could do, for example, is if I'm not happy, I can change things. I can simply say, for example, add a chart showing the forecast category split, right? So what is committed, what is uncommitted, because those of you who are in sales know that just looking at an overall pipeline number is not very helpful. So you want to understand how much of it is actually committed and uncommitted. And it would simply add that. You can also talk and chat to each of the widgets. What does it show? What should the category split show? Again, the AI challenges me. It says, okay, you want a split of the forecast category, but what the heck do you want? Do you want the number of opportunities, or do you want the value, like the dollar value behind it, right? So in this case, let's say, let's do the expected revenue. And then it most likely now has enough information to go away and produce the whole thing for me. And by the way, you don't need to sit here and wait until the dashboard is built. You can start parallel chats and so on, right? So it is not necessary to sit in front of the screen for a couple of minutes and wait until Milo is done here. But obviously, for these purposes, we want to observe everything. Okay, so it's done now. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Took a pie chart, so right choice. And again, it challenges itself. It comes up with everything I want to know. Perfect. Obviously, I can do. I can add whatever I want. I can remove things. I can change things. I can change things. So, I mean, this is a bad example what I'm showing you now because the pie chart is actually perfect for this. But let's assume I don't like the pie chart. I could say change to a bar chart, for example, right? And then it simply changes the whole thing to bar chart. And once this is done, I will stop with the whole dashboarding thing and go into actions, because this is nice, this is cool, but the real value, as we said, actually comes from understanding what's going on in the organization and trigger actions, right? And that's what we will see in a minute. It will just now try and update the dashboard here and turn the whole thing into a pie chart, into a bar chart. It sometimes takes a bit. This is, I mean, first of all, because it's our staging environment, but the reason why it feels sometimes a bit slow is because there is a ton of checks going on in the background. So it does a lot of judging. It judges itself if what it actually does makes sense, right? So to ensure, because we're dealing with data, it needs to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate, right? You cannot show the sales manager or the CFO or whomever a wrong number. They would lose trust immediately. That's why everything is double and triple checked all the time. So here we have a bar chart now. Wonderful. Looks terrible, but good enough for the presentation here. But now we have our wonderful dashboard, a very simple one. What do we want to do now? Let's say, and let's follow the manual process here. Everything I do can be fully automated if I allow the AI to do it. But let's say I have an overdue opportunity here. It's okay, there's one overdue opportunity, and let's see if we find this one in Salesforce. Let me quickly go to Salesforce and try to make my screen a bit larger. I think it was this one here. Yes, so I see this one is simply overdue. 25th of September was last week. So let's tell Milo, move, let's say move to whatever, 10 October, and add and update the status and update the status. Customer sick, go live.
Andy, just mentioning you're on the Salesforce page right now.
Oh,
I don't know if you need to switch over.
Good. Apologies. So what I did here, let's do this again. So I want to trigger an action. I have an overdue opportunity. I simply go and chat with it and say, move to 10 October, add status, customer sick, go live, push out. And that's it. It will go and update Salesforce in this case, right? But again, it could do this autonomously. And all you don't need to configure things. It's not like Zapier or Make.com or all these tools where you have to click together these actions. You simply tell it what you expect it to do, and then it will go and create this. And what does it say? The next step, because I have two options here, two fields obviously in Salesforce, so I need to tell it one more time. So for the first thing, yes, and for the second one, which one do we want to update? Let's say next step, and then it will do it. If I wanted to remember this all the time, then I can simply instruct it once again, remember for the future. I don't want to do this because maybe next time I want to update the notes, right? And not the next steps. So it's up to the user to decide how much you want to, when we talk in human terms, micromanage the AI, right? So the more freedom you give it, the more questions it will ask you. But obviously, that is usually something that helps a lot at the beginning, because it comes up with things that you wouldn't even think about. Like this case, for example, I wasn't thinking about what do I want to update. Do I want to update the next step, or do I want to add a note and attach a note to my CRM, right? You can do both things. So this is quite interesting. So it's done this now. So we can see here already the overdue opportunity is gone, and let's see. When it's done. So it checks a few things, it refreshes everything, it updates. You see there was an update now, so it should be, how was it called, cross-platform? It's now the 10th. Let me close this. Well, let's wait until it's done so we can follow the full process. Does a lot of checks and balances, as you can see. It just verifies everything again 100 times, not 100 times, but a couple of times to ensure that everything is correct. It's done. You can see now it is moved to the 10th of October. When we look into Salesforce, let's look into Salesforce. Let me switch my screen here. Here we go. Where was it? Cross-platform. Yeah, here we go. It's the 10th of October now. This was the opportunity we had before, and the status is now customer sick, go live pushed out, right? So this is just a very, very simple example. As I said, everything I showed you here can be done fully autonomously, right? And it can do anything. It can even, maybe let's do one more thing here. We go back to our chat and have this dashboard thread here. So it's the same thing where we produce the dashboard. I could also say send a summary to Andy on Slack, for example, right? In this case, I instruct the AI. Depending on how you configure it, it will by itself come up with the action, or does it autonomously, right? I just want to repeat this clearly that everybody understands this. So it does this now. What it did is it summarized what we have done here, basically analyzed the results, and then pinged me, hopefully on Slack. Let's see, I need to share my screen here again. 1 second. Stop screen share and share my screen. And here we go. Here we go. Share. So I hope you can see it now. Or not. Okay, this is the wrong window. Apologies. One second, share my screen. Let's share the full screen so I don't need to. And share. Okay. Here we go. So Milo pinged me here. That was just now, 6:41 p.m. This is my current time here. It's quite late here in Europe already. And as you can see, it sent me, this is just from the test sessions before. So it basically gives me an update of what it produced, and also, of course, a link to the dashboard if I want to look at the dashboard. And that is basically it already for today. So I hope you enjoyed the first glimpse into the new world of generative BI and analytics. I am 100% sure you will hear a lot about this topic in the coming weeks and months. It's becoming a huge new big thing in AI. The reason is that the models and the technology has reached a maturity that allows you to do all the things that I just showed you with massive reliability. Because when you think half a year back, even when we started building this product more than a year ago, there was a lot of headache. It hallucinated a lot, etc. Now we're basically hallucination free because we do all these checks. And that's why, as you can sense, what this basically will be in the future is your mini AI COO in your pocket. It understands what is going on in your organization in real time. It tells you why things are going on and things move. And then based on that why, it triggers the actions. And you can do it manually, you can do it autonomously, you can be guided by the AI, it doesn't matter. All of that works through natural language, through any communication tool. And that's it from today. Thank you very much for joining, and we will hopefully see lots of you in 2 weeks in our next webinar about this topic. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Almost 2/3 of decisions aren't backed by data, and 8 out of 9 data requests miss same-day delivery. Hi, I'm Milo, your agentic Gen BI analyst. My mission is to help you back every decision and action with data. Simply connect any data source, whether it's a single database, your entire data warehouse, the tools you use every day, or good old spreadsheets. I know you got plenty of them. Plug in your knowledge base so I can understand your business context. I'll run any analysis or build comprehensive dashboards that blend multiple data sources, all from a single prompt. Now, here's where things get really useful. I don't just create dynamic, interactive charts. I explain what's happening, why it matters, and then trigger the right actions based on those insights. Oh, and if you prefer, you can chat with me in Slack, Teams, or WhatsApp. Let's start today. Every decision backed by data.